Hi everyone, this is Shannon, and we're going to look at Chapter 4, Objective 4, in including students with special needs. The objective is a long one. Describe the uses of high-stakes standardized achievement and psychological tests in making education decisions for students with special needs. Um, let's look at the three kinds of tests. High-stakes achievement tests first. This is a criterion reference test. The criteria is set for everyone and it is the same. The test is administered to all students, regardless of disability level. These tests are state required and also ASEA and IDEA required. Federal mandates are increasing on this, and high stakes achievement tests are much more federally standardized since Common Core came around. And the good thing, accommodations are available for this testing. So we have location can change. Students can take this in a special educator's classroom in a quiet spot with headphones on, whatever they need to be able to take the test. They are also able to take this in a longer period of time if needed, so more time to finish each section. And also formats can be accommodated also. And format means the questions can be given orally or audibly. They can be read to the student. They can also answer that way. They can write things down. So there's a variety of ways to do that. A few notes about high stakes achievement tests. What does it mean for you? Well, students with special needs are held accountable to the same standards as everyone else, and significant improvement is expected yearly. Some states require passing tests for grade promotion. I don't believe that is the case for Minnesota, but you may not be in Minnesota forever, so this is good to know. And the gen ed teacher is responsible for providing supports and assuring success. So the responsibility is on us as teachers to make sure that our students can pass this test and can do well on it, or at least have significant improvement from year to year. And so let's take a look at the next one, standardized achievement tests. They're a norm reference test. The norm is set for all students based on what students are generally able to do at a given grade level and month. So, grade 5, month 6, or usually whenever the test is administered, that's the month they're going to go by. And so that's what the norm is set up to be. They should know this, they should know that, they should have these other abilities. These come in two flavors. There's a group administered test. The book didn't like these much. Broad and shallow tests, not much depth to them. And they tend to poorly develop norms, mostly because they do not include our students with disabilities in generating those norms. And they are often culturally biased. There's also the individually administered test, and you'll notice these are purple because they're not quite as dangerous as the group administered. But individually administered tests are more diagnostic in nature, trying to find out what might not be known, what might be wrong, and that can be helpful, especially when you're working through the RTI process. These tests might help find out what the student does not know, so you can try to get them into the right interventions. And also some similar bias issues, pay attention to those. And by biased, we mean things like only farm and suburb examples being given for students who are actually living in an urban area. And so they would have no understanding of how that works or how to extrapolate an answer from that situation. Bullet points for the achievement test, the standardized achievement test. Due to the biases, they can be helpful, but verify the results. Use them as part of an entire assessment battery. High stakes tests are generally preferred to these tests because standardized achievement tests take time and money, and high stakes tests have to be given anyway, and the time and money is often federally assisted. There are also psychological tests. Psychological tests are created for evaluation of a student. They test the abilities of the student, and so that might be to test something like reading comprehension, their ability to inductively reason or generalize and draw conclusions. Also, memory and other reasoning can be tested with these types of tests. So these are the kinds of things that are great to test, but here's the other parts of this: the psychologist administered test. They're indirectly related to education. So they're not going to have, well, what you really need to do is put the student in this, that, or the other. It's going to speak to a general reasoning or thinking capacity within the student, or other areas that you might want to test. They are time consuming because they're usually long tests, and also watch for bias in these as well. One of the psychologist administered psychological tests is the IQ test. I believe current versions of IQ test are much improved because there are many of them. But IQ tests originally began as part of a eugenics program. So still worthwhile to take a good look at those tests. Psychological tests can have a lot of jargon and can kind of drive you a little crazy. If you've had educational psychology, you'll know there's a lot of jargon to wade through. Check for technical accuracy of the type of test and admissibility for RTI. Some of these tests cannot be used, and so you need to make sure that they are actually considered to be accurate. Don't despair if the results contradict your observations. It is a single test. These tests are for explaining behavior and giving a springboard for action, and they are not a fix-all. So what now? How do we look at these things as educators? The main takeaway is that these assessments are just one tool. So whether it's a high-stakes test, a psychological test, it's one tool of many that you're going to be using. They may not be adequate to measure student progress because of bias within the testing. And so keep that in mind in the way that things are written, in the examples given, and the kind of student that you are working with. Always use your judgment compared to what you see in the classroom, both in the gen ed setting and with special educators. There are that one-to-one time and that one-to-one moments that you spend with your student are far more important than a one-shot on a test. And objectives 3 and 4 are solutions when these particular assessments fail to satisfy the needs. So there is hope. There is some stuff out there to use. Onward to objectives 3 and 4 to find out what they are, because they are pretty interesting types of assessments. All right, thanks a lot.